Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about Turtle again, but this time we're going to be actually creating a game using Turtle. So, before we were just looking at Turtle's functions, we were looking at how to use classes, make subclasses of the Turtle. Now, we're actually going to be creating a game. Now, warning, it is not going to be a really good game. There are going to be problems with the game, and that's just because of the limitations of Turtle. Turtle is not really used for like serious games. It's an introduction to game building. The next unit that we do will cover Pygame. And Pygame is where we actually truly start looking at game building logic. So let's get started. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to open up Visual Studio, create a new folder, whatever the project name is, and then inside of that folder, create a new folder and call it images. Okay. This is where we're going to store all of our sprites. Sprites are basically characters in our game, right? Then we're going to create a new file and we're going to call this main.py. And we're just going to have all of our program or all of our code in one file. And that's why I'm just going to call it main.py. Okay, so the next thing that I want to show you is exactly how you find good images, okay? So let's go ahead and it's an apple catcher game. Okay, so let me explain what that is. Basically, we're gonna have like two characters. It's gonna be a two-player game. We're gonna have a monkey and a farmer. And basically, they're going to try to catch as much food as they can. And there's gonna be different foods worth different points, until one of the characters reaches a certain point limit, like 25. So we need to find like sprites for the monkey, farmer, and our food, which are like apples and bananas. So what you can do is you can just search up monkey images, right? And then I want it to be kind of cartoonish. So I'm going to go to cartoon, right? And it's up to you to find what you want. Or you can search up sprites, right? Sprites like this. You can find some cool images. But you want to make sure that they're transparent, right? Because if they're not transparent, you're going to get a white background. So we're going to do monkey sprites transparent. It's the first thing that comes up. And you know it's transparent when... Okay, so the way you know it's transparent is if you look at the image and you don't see those like black and white squares, but then when you click on them, you see the black and white squares. Because this image is actually not transparent, even though it shows the black and white squares. Because when you're looking at the preview, you can still see the black and white squares. So this is a good image. If you need help finding images, you can of course ask the YCLU staff team, or you can use something called PNG image transparent or something like that, right? And you can use a tool. There are lots of tools like this to make a PNG with a white background completely transparent. Okay, so since this one is already transparent, I'm just going to use this. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to click save image as. I'm going to navigate to my game and I'm going to save it as, and make sure you rename it to something that's very easy to type, right? Monkey.png. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do this for all of my sprites and I'll be back when I do so. So as you can see, I have all of my sprites, but they look a bit different. Okay, there are two things I did to these sprites that make them different and that make them ready to be able to be played in the game. The first thing is I need to convert the PNG to a GIF because Turtle only is able to use GIF images, not PNG, not JPG. Pygame is able to use PNG, but not Turtle, and that's one of its biggest limitations. Well, not its biggest, it has a lot of limitations, but that's one of it. The second thing you want to do is, if we press edit, okay, so for Mac, you might have to use another form of an editor, I'm not exactly sure, but for Windows, you can go ahead and you can click edit with Paint 3D or edit with normal paint, right? And then what you want to do is you want to go to canvas, and as you can see, the width and height of this is 600 pixels. That is huge. Okay, most sprites are around 32 to 64 pixels. I'm gonna make our food 32 pixels, so I'm gonna make this monkey 64 pixels, and as you can see, the height automatically changes. I'm going to save this and our monkey becomes smaller. And then finally, the way you change to GIF is two ways. Okay, you can rename the extension directly to GIF like this. Okay, but make sure before you're doing this, make sure that when you click on here, click on view, click on this view button, and make sure that file name extensions are checked, because if it's not checked, then you will only see like apple, banana, farmer. You won't be able to change the file extensions unless you check file name extensions. Now let's go ahead and rename this to GIF. Press yes. And since I already have one, I'm not going to actually rename it. If it's not converting to a GIF, you can use, again, the internet is a great tool, PNG to GIF tool. And as you can see, easygif.com is the top search. All you have to do is put in one image here and it'll convert it directly to a GIF. Okay, so go ahead and convert all of your sprites that you want to use into a GIF and make them small. For example, the bananas, if you click on edit with Paint 3D, I've made the bananas 32 pixels. I'm making all the food like 32 pixels, and I'm making the characters double that size. So the monkey is like 64 pixels. The farmer is also around 64 pixels. Okay, go ahead and do that, and then we'll take a look at the code. Okay, so as you can see, I already have some code written here. And just like any other project, I'm going to go through each of the code. Right now, all I'm doing is, this is pretty new, but I'm initializing a new window. Basically, I'm changing the parameters of what our window looks like. Usually it's pretty small when we open it up. I want to make it a tiny bit bigger, and I want to change the title of it to like Apple Catcher Game, as well as, you know, the background color to light blue. So we basically, you know, have a variable called screen, and then we set its title, set it up with a certain width and height, and then change its background color. Now if we save this and if we run it, oh yeah, that's one thing we forgot, the main loop. And now if you save it and run, we have our nice screen, Apple Catcher Game, it's light blue, then we can X out of it. It's saying that there's an error here. It's really not. It's just importing stuff from Turtle. So as you can see, without the main loop, you know, the code just exited by itself. So I'm just going to move this down a lot because this is not that important. Okay. Now let's take a look at what we need to do next. Okay. So now we have 3 classes that I've added, right? And that's another thing. We're going to be using a lot of classes, especially when you get to Pygame. So be familiar with this. Basically, we're going to create 3 classes, and we're going to inherit the turtle property. So each of these classes are actually turtles, right? The reason for that is we're actually, so you know how the turtle is like an arrow, right? If you have our normal turtle, it's just an arrow and it draws stuff. What we can do is we can actually set the turtle's image to a sprite, like an apple or a monkey. And then we can move it, and we can make it so that it doesn't draw anything while it's moving. So that's why, if you look at food, we have 2 parameters, image path and value. Don't worry about value right now. It's basically how much points the food is worth. And an image path is basically what is the file path for that image. Okay, and again, I'll talk to you about that in a bit. So basically what we're doing is we are initializing, you know, using the turtle init method, and then we're doing some extra stuff. So we're setting self.value equal to value. We're putting our pen up so that whenever the food moves, it doesn't draw anything. We're setting the speed to 0 so that it moves instantaneously, like it teleports, right? And then this is pretty important, okay? So basically what we're doing is we are registering our image, right? So let's say we have an apple.gif, right? We are registering this apple, you know, with the image path, and then we are setting our turtle shape to the image path. So we're setting the foods, the apple turtles sprite to an apple, okay? And you'll see what that looks like in a bit. And if you look at our player turtle, we do basically the same thing, except we have an instance variable called score that we are going to set to 0, and this is going to keep track of our player score. And then we literally do the same thing. Now the last thing, a text turtle. You might be wondering, why can't we just, you know, make a normal turtle? Well, I've decided that it's just better if we make a turtle for writing our text. It makes life a little bit easier. And we also need to keep track of the player's score so that when we're updating the player's score, the text turtle is updated with that. And you'll see that in later videos. So we basically, when we initialize it, we want to set the turtle to a certain position, right? Because that's where it's going to print its text. So X position, Y position, and then finally, what's the text color going to be? So that's all going to be defined when we start actually instantiating our variables. So we hide the turtle because we don't want it to show, right? And that is it for this video. In the next video, we're actually going to be instantiating these variables. And I'm going to be showing you a very unique way of doing that, something that you might not see, but it will make a lot of sense. And you'll be kind of wowed by how cool it is, right? Basically, it's making our code much more efficient, and it's also going to show you why for loops are extremely helpful. Thanks for watching.